This video is going to be a complete breakdown of Cursor's tab features. So this is Cursor's AI-powered autocomplete features. What we're going to do is we are going to be, or at least I'm going to be, whether or not you want to follow along with me is totally up to you, but I'm going to be using that project that I recommended you set up. And the way that you run that project is you want to go to your terminal, which again, let's actually just clean this up just a bit here. You can click on this bottom, this button at the top here that will open up the bottom panel here. And what we want to do is we want to run, you will actually need to run npm I first. This will install the packages. You'll actually need to do npm i - force if for some reason you get this nasty error here. And what you will do after you do npm i - force, you will do npm run dev. That will spin up a developer instance here in the browser. So you can go to localhost :3000 in your browser. This is going to spin up the front end starter project that we're going to be using, which is just a basic create next JS app. Very, very, very basic stuff here. And we're going to be demoing all the different features that Cursor has to offer with Cursor Tab using this little project. And we're going to be using this project as well for the Command K section, which will be next, and then the Cursor agent section, which will be after that. And then that will kind of complete the core trio of the main Cursor features. So, like I said, Cursor Tab, AI autocomplete. What we'll do here is in the app folder here, we're going to create a new page. We'll create a new route rather, and we'll just call this tab. We just create route names for the actual feature. And then inside of here, we want to create a new file called page.tsx. Again, you don't have to be following along with the code here. It's not going to detract from your experience, but if you just want to kind of get a feel for the same workflow that I'm using, this is how you're going to be doing it. One thing, I'm just going to mention this one more time, and then I promise I won't mention it anymore, is on Takeoff, we have the full stack fundamentals course. The very first section of that is our front-end fundamentals, which kind of covers all the front-end stuff that I'm talking about here. So if that confuses you at all and you're like, that's interesting, I want to learn more about that, that's the place to be here. But what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be using Cursor Tab exclusively. We won't be using Command K or Agent in the side here. I'll actually just completely close that panel for now since we're not using it. And we're going to use Tab to build a new page here. So what I'm going to do here is, and let's actually follow best practices here. Inside of the Cursor rules folder, okay, remember from the rules section, .cursor folder, inside of that a rules folder, and then inside of that a file. We'll call this all.mdc. This is something that I'll do in a lot of my projects, which is I'll create an all file. Sometimes I call always, depends on my mood. We'll make this an always rule type here, and I'll just basically outline the tech stack that I'm working with. So I'll say we are using Next.js, Shadcn, Tailwind for our front end stack. Then we're going to save this. And remember when we talked about project rules, the always type, this will now apply this set of rules to all of our requests. So essentially we're just adding this to the prompt that gets sent to the AI models that Cursor uses. And the reason that we want to do that is because this will also get applied to what happens inside of Cursor Tab. So when we're in a page.tsx file, Cursor Tab between the file that we're in, the other files that it's seen, the recent context, the recent work that we've done, and then our rules file, it's going to be able to infer, okay, I'm working in Next.js and the user expects me, because I'm in this page file here, to probably create a new page. So what we can just start doing here is we could even guide this individual file with the Cursor Tab usage with comments. And we could say, let's create a new page that talks about Cursor's tab features. And see how this gray text as I type, and then I kind of will pause and stop, and you'll see this gray text start to populate. That is the suggested code coming in from Cursor Tab. So this can happen for creates, which you can see right here. If I were to literally just hit my tab key, and this is why Cursor Tab is called tab. If I hit my tab key, you'll see it now goes from auto recommendation code to actual written code. That is Cursor Tab at work, right? So Cursor is literally using AI to auto complete the code that it thinks that I'm about to write. So you can see that if I save this and then go over to my web browser here, we're going to go to that /tab page, which we just created. You'll see we have a very basic tab page, and the code for that corresponds to the code that we just had written for us by Cursor Tab. And what you can see here is I've now just clicked on a line 5 right here. You can see Cursor Tab is now not only doing a create, but it's also doing an edit. So it's basically recommending, okay, it looks like you have a really basic page here. It's probably inferring that, okay, the user probably wants to create something more complex. So now we can go ahead, hit Tab again, and now it's going to autocomplete that new code, we could save that. So I'm just going to hit Command S here on Mac. And you can see my code change is now reflected inside of my website over here. So one thing you'll note is you can kind of activate cursor tab by clicking around. So you'll see that I actually misspelled this. If I actually click right into here, and let's just say I start, typing, let's say I hit my delete key to edit that, you'll see cursor is like, oh, you're probably trying to fix the spelling of that. So let's suggest the correct spelling. So now I can just hit tab and that's going to finish up. So now my spelling error is corrected there, right? Which isn't code. This is obviously a comment line here, but I think you kind of get the point here. So one of the things that we could do, it's pretty established that this is now a new page. We could get rid of that comment and maybe we want to write, some classes here, which are going to style up our page a little bit more. So we could kind of start typing class name, which is what I would do if I didn't have access to AI, right? I would write class name and then I would start writing Tailwind classes, which is kind of the style system that we're using here. And you can see cursor tab is now auto predicting the classes that I think would be helpful that I'm most likely to write. So we can hit tab, hit save, and then you're going to see, okay, it looks like it centered this in the middle of our screen. So let's actually start typing a paragraph tag right here in HTML. And you can see if I actually just click the P here, you can see now cursor is predicting, oh, it looks like you're probably trying to write a little bit about cursor tab features, right? It's pulling this into context. So we could tab through that. And you don't have to just tab and save every time. You can literally just keep tabbing. So if I actually get a new result here, you can see a new paragraph is getting added, right? Let's say we wanted to add one more. One of the things you can see that I just said I wanted to do one more. So one of the things you can do is you can either just tab this and then delete this one manually, but you can also use the one token at a time feature here. So if I actually just do command and the right arrow key, this is going to add one token at a time. So I'm literally just continuing to hit this. So I think on Windows that would be what? Control, right arrow key. On Mac, this is command, right arrow key by default. Maybe you've changed your hotkey. I don't know. But you can also interact with cursor tab like that. But say I just wanted to finish the entire thing, I would just hit tab and continue on my way. So very, very helpful, right? So cursor tab suggests edits around your cursor. It can be creates, it can be edits, it can be deletes. You can see this red right here. This is actually suggesting a delete. So if I hit tab, that would delete it, right? So the more code that you have, the better the predict is going to be of cursor tab. So say, say we wanted to write a button here. Let's actually just write a really basic button component. You can see get started. And let's say we added a function here. So this would be an on click. And I just wanted to do something that just said handle click. One thing I could do is I could go up here, and what cursor tab is smart enough to recognize, it goes, okay, you have this handle click function that's supposed to run when you click this button, but you don't, there's no function in here. So what's happening here, you can see cursor tab, very smart, is now adding a handle click function here, which is very cool. And again, we can kind of guide this with comments. So one of the things I want to simulate here is, let's say we had, if we had a lot more code written in here, this would be more obvious. But if I had a comment that kind of guided this, that said the function should navigate you to the cursor website, right? You can see cursor tab is now, see how this is red? This is now recommending a delete. You can see over here is the code that is recommending it get added, right? You can see that's in green. Then if I hit tab, looks like the window URL gets changed. So if I go back over to my code now, you'll see we get this little error here. You may have seen earlier, cursor actually predicted that I would need this. But if we start typing use client, I need use client here. Earlier, if you actually rewind, you will have seen cursor tab was smart enough to know I needed that. So if we actually click this get started button here, this should navigate us to cursor, which sure enough it did. So if I hit my back button, it's going to take us back. So let's go ahead and maybe we want to style up this button a little bit more, right? We could start typing class name. It looks like, oh, cursor is giving us some classes here. I'm just going to hit tab, autocomplete that, save, and now we have a button that actually looks like a button, right? Which is very cool. So this is very useful because it just works very naturally in your workflow. Cursor tab doesn't take you out of flow. It's very much kind of an inline suggestion type thing. So you don't just have to automatically accept every single thing it does. It's kind of up to you as you're working whether or not the generation it gave you is useful or not. More times than not, I'll say cursor tab's pretty on the money of what you're going to want. Again, it's going to take context not just from the file that you're in right now, but files from your code base. Again, it's going to use things like your rules files behind the scenes. It's going to use things like knowing what you've recently worked on, which is one of the really nice things. Cursor tab is actually a model that Cursor itself creates. So this isn't like a model from OpenAI or something. This is actually their own internal model, which is why it's so fast. It's very kind of tailored to the actual Cursor user experience, which is really cool. So one of the things that we also mentioned was in the settings, right? Settings, we go to settings features for Cursor tab. You also get auto import. So anytime you need imports, so like, let's say we added some state here. You can see it looks like Cursor is predicting that we need in his loading state here. You'll see that Cursor has this jump here UI. This is because not only can Cursor kind of edit and generate code near where your cursor is, but can also kind of skip around the file. This is called cursor prediction, which is where you're going to get things like auto imports. You're going to get things like cursor jumping from a function up here to maybe some sort of UI element all the way down here, right? So cursor can actually do that, and that UI is sort of what that looks like. So you can see I just now got that auto import, which is really cool, right? We just added a loading spinner. So maybe if we start typing in if, you'll see it's like, oh, okay, if loading, we want to do this, and it looks like we would want to show some sort of a loading spinner, right? Maybe we want to add a class to that. So let's start typing class, tab through that. Maybe we want this handle click to actually do some sort of interaction with loading. So you can see it's predicting, okay, you probably want loading true there. And then if we go to this next line, oh, well, now that you've navigated, you probably want loading to be false, right? So cursor tab is very smart. It's very fast. It can jump around your file. It listens to things like your recent changes, your linter errors, even kind of recent work that you've done. Very, very powerful little feature here. So definitely recommend getting more familiar with using Cursor Tab. I'd say of all of the Cursor features, Tab is the one that's going to be most intuitive, right? Because when you get to things like using the AI panel, it's very explicit when you use this, right? If I tell the agent like, hey, make a page for our new feature in this file, right? And then I tag a file or whatever. Very obvious when that workflow is being happen, right? You're kind of dictating to the AI what you want it to do. Even like Command K, right? If I highlight this code, Command K, and then I give it some instructions, right? It's very much up to me what happens. Very much giving instructions to the AI. Whereas with Cursor Tab, the AI is kind of bringing recommendations to you. So when things get triggered, right? When Cursor Tab is helpful to you or not, it's just going to be so dependent on what particular task you're doing in your workflow and how you like to work. So this is probably the most personal feature that Cursor has to offer, and just getting used to when it's helpful, how to activate it, kind of all those different little nuance, pieces of nuance that you pick up with the feature is very much the more you use it, the better you get at using it type thing. So one of the things I'll see quite often is people maybe in the first 10 minutes of using it think it's maybe a little bit annoying, a little bit intrusive maybe even, but once they get like an hour, 2 hours into it, they start developing that intuitive feel for the tool and when it's useful and where to use it and things like that. So I would say of all of Cursor's AI features, give Tab a little bit of time. I think it'll really grow on you. It's very, very universally loved once you kind of get in the flow of using it. So that's Cursor Tab, the features it offers, and kind of how to get started with it.